Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 299 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. It's Blue Jays Talk for All, brought to you by JaysFromTheCouch.com. Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome back for another week of Blue Jays Talk, brought to you by JaysFromTheCouch.com. We're so happy you're tuning in for another week of Blue Jays Talk, whether you are tuning into our live stream on Facebook, on YouTube, and Twitter. We're glad you're here, and don't forget, that's where you can leave your comments and questions and tell us how awesome we are and all of that stuff. Live, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays, the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. And of course, everywhere you find quality podcasts, you'll find Jays from the Couch, whether it's Apple, Google, wherever, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, you'll find Jays from the Couch. So look us up there, give us a subscribe and a rate and review and all that fun stuff. I'm your host, as always, Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. We've got a great episode for you this week. We're going to bring back our MLB Minute segment where we'll look at the most recent managerial shuffle in Philadelphia, and we'll tie that into the Blue Jays, which Blue Jays, either former players or current coaches, might make good Major League managers. And as well, the bulk of our episode, we're going to look at the departure of Ryan Borucki, a left-handed salute for that guy, and potentially who now is going to be the longest serving Blue Jay. And to help me do all of that, we've got the usual cast of characters, if you will. Host of the On Feck Circle, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, it's Steve Feck, the Feckless Wonder. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sean. Before we get too far, I think we should thank all the people that contributed to the ALS JFtC versus ALS campaign. We had some rather sizable donations. We've got one more coming in. All the likes and the retweets and the comments, it helped us get closer to our goal with ALS Canada. So I just wanted to say thanks about that.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to bring you on there. And before, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I'll bring on Karen, host of Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Sean. Good evening, Steve.
So, as Steve mentioned, most recently, Steve took it upon himself to a one-man crusade, as it were, to take up the reins of the of the Jays from the Couch efforts to fight ALS. Steve did an excellent job. His On Feck Circle last week, anybody who left a comment, Steve would donate $1 to the ALS Society of Canada, and then he expanded it even further. This guy really put his money where his mouth is, or at least his tweeting fingers, and if you retweeted as well, he donated $1. And I should say that our efforts also encouraged others to just make their own donations as well, which I cannot describe to anybody, which is weird because, if I'm doing a podcast, you should be good with words. But I can't describe the feeling when I get the notifications that somebody else has contributed to our efforts to donate money to the ALS Society of Canada. So I want a massive, massive thank you to Steve for doing that. His efforts were really appreciated. And to everybody else who donated, retweeted, commented, thank you so much. It really helped us not only just raise funds, but also raise awareness so that we can kick this disease in the ass one day. Excuse me. But we're not done, because ALS is not over. It's not finished. We're not done either. We're going to keep going. Our ALS event, where you can make a direct donation, a tax-deductible donation, is still going strong. Head to ALS events/jaysfromthecouch.ca, I believe. That was just off the top of my head, so if I'm mistaken, the links are
.ca/jaysfromthecouch.
Thank you. alsevents.ca/jaysfromthecouch. That's it. I knew I had it in there somewhere. The links are also on jaysfromthecouch.com. But if you're somebody who enjoys swag, stuff we all get, I don't know if that's actually what it stands for, but I learned that from Michael Scott of The Office. But if you're into purchasing, you want something for your money, we have a large selection of merchandise available at our Redbubble shop. Lots of cool stuff. We've got some shirts, phone cases. We've got pillows, even mugs. We've got a whole bunch of stuff, and where you can get the Jays from the Couch merchandise, and 100% of the profits go directly to the ALS Society of Canada to help with their efforts. So go ahead, buy yourself a nice shirt, and feel good about it. Okay, so now let's get to it. We've got a great episode. We're going to kick off with the MLB Minute. And Steve, before we do that, maybe I'll just throw it over to you to kind of give us the little, the context for our MLB Minute, and then we'll each take 1 minute to discuss the topic as it's presented. So, Steve, over to you.
Well, thanks, Shaun. With this week's MLB Minute, sort of dealt a lot around Joe Girardi's firing and Rob Thompson, the first Canadian manager since 1934 to be elevated to a full-time managerial job. I kind of threw out some names, both current staffers, in the Blue Jays organization, as well as former Blue Jays like Russell Martin and Michael Saunders, who could be on the fast track to a major league job somewhere down the road. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're coming from with our MLB Minute. So are you ready with your timer?
The timer is ready to go, and Steve, we'll let you start since you've been so gracious to already put in the legwork for this one. So 1 minute. Blue Jays connection. Next MLB managers, go.
Okay, well, the Phillies managerial change probably isn't the last change that's going to happen in the major leagues. I don't know that anyone on the current Jays coaching staff would be a in-season fill, but certainly with the Phillies' Achilles heel for a long time has been pitching. Pete Walker was considered one of the initial candidates for the Mets job. He would work hand in hand really, really well with Dave Dombrowski. But the guy I'm going to go with is AAA manager Casey Candell. Now that it looks like Charlie Montoyo is safe, other than from my barbs, as far as his job security goes. Candell has a history. He played under Dombrowski when Dombrowski was a young GM in Montreal. Even though Dombrowski traded him, they've been in touch throughout time. Candell is both old school and embraces the analytics. He may be the next major league manager with Blue Jays connections.
Look at that. You finished right on time. All right. So, Karen, we're going to throw it over to you. MLB Minute, and go.
Steve, with the perfect timing. Well, yeah, there's lots of options, lots of smart guys out there. I'm going to pick one of each, one former Blue Jays player and one current Blue Jays coach. The player might be someone that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, and that's Josh Tolley. And the reason that I choose him is 1 year when he was a player with the team, I was at spring training and I was within earshot hearing him talk to some people, and man, that guy is smart. He's intelligent. He's articulate. Like I think he can do pretty much anything that he sets his mind to it, if anybody wants to give him that opportunity. And then the current coach is actually someone that I hoped would get the Blue Jays job when it was vacant. I had never heard of Charlie Montoyo, but John Schneider. He has managerial experience in the minor leagues with the Blue Jays system, and he was darn good.
Josh Tolley is a very interesting idea.
Yeah, I actually forgot him. Yeah, that's terrific. And you hit the post.
Just about. I was just about to, that was pretty much all I wanted to say. So.
This jockey tip, you never say, "Oh, well, I wasn't really finished." You just accept the fact you hit the post and
got
pat yourself on the back and say, "I'm a professional." So
it's all part of the plan.
Yeah.
All right, MLB Minute, my turn. When I first heard the idea, Russell Martin came into my head immediately. The guy is well respected around baseball for the way he sees the game and the ideas that he has, and his ability to talk to players, which I think is something that, obviously we only have a little tiny glimpse of, but I think that will play heavily into any decision. But the only question is Russell Martin interested? And maybe one day, maybe, but I don't know. There's something in the back of my head that says he may just want to walk away and go off into the sunset and spend his millions. And you know what? That's just fine with me. Some other names that I kind of came up with was the Michael Saunders idea. I didn't think was a reality until I read Steve's work, and you notice how much he's doing in the Atlanta system already. So that, to me, I find it very interesting. I wouldn't have thought that about him a while ago. Of course, he may be only to manage half a season, because we all know that any more than that and he falls apart.
Right. And it should be noted that Russell Martin has a losing record as a manager.
Yeah, so
also true.
Yes.
Yeah. Michael Saunders is even 1,000, I guess. 0 for 0. How does that work? He's got a bad average, but a great on-base percentage. So anyway, okay. So speaking of former Blue Jays, our MLB Minute is done, but we're going to talk about, first of all, Ryan Borucki just was not cutting it. And I think, Karen, I want to start with you, just as far as your thoughts on Ryan Borucki and how it seemed like the decline came out of nowhere. Yes, there were injuries, and yes, but that happens in baseball. But the fact that he just kind of lost all effectiveness, that to me is a bit of a surprise. So, Karen, what are your thoughts on Ryan Borucki?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I remember when he was a rookie in 2018, and he just pitched so well for a Blue Jays team that really wasn't all that good. He was one of the few bright spots, and I thought he had a really bright future with the team as a starting pitcher. And like you said, it just kind of, I mean, overnight, for a man who is really not very old, he seems to have lost his effectiveness. And excuse me, I continue to cheer for him. I still do, even though he's not in the organization anymore. That's from what I know of him. I mean, you don't really know what these people are like unless you know them, and I don't. But all I know about him is that he seems like a good guy, and he certainly has had the talent, and I can continue to cheer. Anytime that he was with the Jays, brought back up, whatever, I thought, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the time he'll put it all together and be successful. And he just didn't do it. And like Charlie Montoyo said, I think it was right around opening day, give or take, he said something to the effect of, well, the Pope's a nice guy, but he's not winning us any ball games. You can't keep, if you have championship aspirations, you can't keep people around because you'd like them. You need guys who are going to contribute, and he just wasn't. So all the best in Seattle. Don't get anybody out against the Jays, and
that shouldn't be the problem.
So we hope he turns things around, except against Toronto. But see, this is what's fascinating to me. A lot of people will go on about how baseball is a business, right? And that's just the way it goes. But this is coming from fans, I find the most interesting, because really, it's none of our business, really, when you think about it. You know what I mean? It's not a business to us. It's something that we give our hearts to. It's a passion thing, which defies logic, especially for those, fans of, like, I don't know, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Sorry, Steve. But or, the Baltimore Orioles. It defies logic. Sorry, Christian, if you're watching, but it still defies logic. But anyway, but then there is that kind of human element to the game that, and Charlie saying, well, you got to win us games. That's the end. At the end of the day, that's the issue. And sometimes that's tough to get your head around when you're talking about about guys who you've watched from, when they were drafted to developed, and you were excited when they made their major league debut and all of that stuff. So it's tough to watch Ryan Borucki go. But Steve, what now do the Blue Jays do with regard to that lefty bullpen? I know Tim Mesa. I don't know why I was going to say Steve Mesa, but I'm not going down that road. I'm not opening up that door. Just leave that one closed. But what do you do now? Tim Mesa's healthy. He's back, but they're only an injury away from not having an effective lefty option. So, Steve, in your mind, what do they do? Do they just go out and try and get the most effective reliever they can get, or do they really focus on this lefty issue?
Well, I think tonight will give us a glimpse, potentially, if he gets in the game, as you see the little tag on the screen, the Matt Gage fan club. Matt Gage is with the Blue Jays in Kansas City. They have to make a corresponding roster move either tonight or when they ever activate him. They would have to potentially drop somebody from the 40-man roster in order to get him on there. But he has major league experience. He was a really good college pitcher. I remember seeing him pitching in college. And over the last 3 years, since he's recovered from an elbow injury and a minor surgery, he's seen an uptick in velocity each of the last 3 seasons. So for me, an internal option is Matt Gage. Is he Tim Mesa? He certainly is not. He is an upgrade over Ryan Borucki, who's no longer here, and what Andrew Velazquez can deliver at this particular stage. But I've been saying this since the offseason, they need to go out and get a left-handed reliever. So I'm still going to beat that drum. I like to believe that Ross Atkins is not done shopping, that he is going to look to tinker, sort of like he did last June and July, tinkered at added pieces as time went on. Some worked, some didn't. But he knows that in order to go deep in the playoffs, they need to add at least one more left-handed reliever.
100%. And you know what? They may even need it just to get to the playoffs. Like this bullpen is when it's on, it's good. But you can't rely on the same 3 guys to get you through a whole season. And you know what? As effective as Jordan Romano has been, at some point his arm's going to fall off, right? So we've got to, there's other things at play here with regard to what Ross Atkins does. And I know he's not a dumb man. I know he sees what they need and all of that stuff. But the question will be, well, I see. I know you wouldn't, but how quickly is he going to pull that trigger? That's the real question, and maybe we can talk about that next week. Look at what they need or whatever have you. But I do want to talk about this idea that Ryan Borucki was the longest tenured Blue Jay. Before him, it was Anthony Alford. Another tear run down the cheek there. Ryan Borucki, longest tenured. Now I believe Danny Jansen and Steve pointed out that Tim Mesa was also drafted in that 2013 class. So those are the longest serving Toronto Blue Jays. We're approaching 10 years, really, when you think about when they were drafted. The question really becomes now, who will be the longest serving Toronto Blue Jay? When we look at this roster, how much of this core should they try and keep in a Blue Jays uniform? So Karen, I'm going to start with you. Just your general thoughts. Who's the first person you come to mind that they are just never going to let leave Toronto?
Guerrero. He's going to be a lifetime Blue Jay. He's going to be here as a 40-year-old DH with a handful of rings, and then he'll hang him up. He'll hit a pinch hit home run in Game 7 of the World Series in 2040.
I can't tell how far you've gone past what you actually believe will happen. I don't know. To me, obviously that's the first name that comes to mind, right? But Steve, when you hear Karen say that, and when you're obviously, I know your mind must have gone there too, with talking about Vlad, who's got to be the first one, right? But that's going to cost a mint. And do you see, Steve, and I know I'm throwing this out to you in particular because I know you see the front office way differently than Karen does. But do you see Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, and maybe even ownership, approving, a mega deal like we see in what's his name there in San Diego, who hasn't played at all this year?
Tatis.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name yet. In Tatis Jr. or, well, that's just it, right? Maybe that's it. Do you see Toronto shelling out, 10-year? At the end, when they do it, it might be close to $40 million a year. Do you really see a $400 million contract coming down from this front office?
I could see it happening for the two guys, Vladdy and Bo, but I also see a 10-year or 8-year contract with a bunch of opt-outs. I can't imagine that Vladdy. Now he may, again, Tatis is his best friend on the planet. So he may follow that Tatis route and want to be in the organization that believed in him and brought him up. But I think both he and Bo, because they have grown up around the game, they can see the value. And sure, okay, I've got 10 years guaranteed in case I get hurt, but let's put some opt-outs in at the 3rd year or the 5th year or whatever it is, so that I can explore my options if they have to go. Let's say the Blue Jays eventually, with all their chips in, eventually have to step back and retool again. Maybe they don't go that route. But I mean, the guy that I think is going to be here a long time, and it's part of the reason why I wear my Montreal Expos gear, is I think Jordan Romano is going to be a lifetime Blue Jay. Just like Claude Raymond when he came back to Montreal. He was a Montreal native, came back in the expansion draft. I think Romano is going to be here. He doesn't have to be a closer his whole career, but he's the kind of pitcher that is more than serviceable and can carve himself out a long career with his hometown team.
Interesting. I never would have thought about that. And Karen, here's why. I'm going to throw it to you to get your thoughts on Jordan Romano. But do you see the Blue Jays committing long-term to a reliever, or if somehow, Jordan Romano, stays healthy, and Charlie Montoyo doesn't pitch his arm off in 2022, do you see him sticking around, or will it be on kind of multiple shorter term deals, or do you see a long term? Because I have a hard time believing that they would commit year after year after year, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years to a reliever.
Right. Yeah. I think you're right that if it's going to happen, it'll probably be a series of shorter term deals. I mean, decent contracts for Romano. But yeah, people keep going back to BJ Ryan, and even though that was a different Jays front office, how just the Jays front office in general doesn't want to get stuck committing a lot of money to a relief pitcher, because who the heck knows, and yada yada yada. But yeah, I mean, I like Romano, and I mean he was out of the organization and now he's back, and yeah, I'd like to see him finish his playing days here. So,
yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I wasn't saying that they were going to lock up Romano to a long-term contract. It was strictly addressing, as far as tenure, he could be in town for a long time, because he's the kind of reliever that every organization covets. At some point, he's your big closer. At some point, he's an Andrew Miller kind of, pitch and leverage situations. He can pitch in just about any role, and as he gets older, I'd imagine he's going to be, a long man, or a bridge guy rather than a leverage guy. But he's the kind of guy that I can see staying in the organization, a long term, like a Paul Quantrill, or those kind of relievers that just seem to always be on the roster, the spring training roster.
Yeah, the Aaron Loops. How long are they going to keep this guy around?
Well, not long enough, apparently, because he did great with the Mets, and he's the only effective reliever with the Angels right now. So,
and that just blows my mind. But when so if we're talking about Vladdy and Bo, obviously, they're kind of minor league experience will add the number of years. And those are the two obvious ones, but let's kind of look around elsewhere, and let's talk about Cavan Biggio for a second here. And Steve, I'll start with you. Cavan Biggio, Do you see him sticking around? I mean, past this season, let alone to kind of rival that tenure discussion?
I don't, only because he is such a valuable trade chip, but saying that he is one of the talented young core that the Blue Jays can step away from because they have such, they have a plethora of middle infield prospects. Eventually, they'll develop an outfielder. I'm assuming. So I think even though Cavan, he's one of my favorite Blue Jays for sure. He just has such value on a trade market. Even if he's not the key part of a trade, he's going to be a piece that rival general managers are going to demand be put in if you're going to be bringing in an impact bat or an impact arm.
Right. And I think that's where I've kind of landed myself with regard to Biggio. But Karen, do you see right now, Biggio doesn't have much trade value. He's going to have to show, that he is back and all of that stuff. But at some point, Karen, do you see him on the trade block and playing elsewhere? Or do you think he has a shot to stick with the club?
Excuse me. I mean, I could see Biggio maybe being around for a few more years. It's unfortunate because I really like him. And I think even a year or two ago, people were talking about him as a possible contract extension candidate. Now, actually, if you look, because if people just look at his overall numbers this season, obviously they're not pretty because he got off to such a glacial start. His stats, and I don't have them in front of me, but since his recall, it's not like he's playing like an all-star, but he's been like night and day how much better he's been since coming back. So that's really great to see. But yeah, it would be interesting to know what his trade value would be in the eyes of the other 29 general managers. So, I mean, I could see it going either way. Maybe I could see him getting traded, but I could kind of see him sticking around, being utilized in different roles until he's eligible for free agency, and maybe that'll be that.
Right. And the only reason I say that Cavan Biggio won't be around long is because if Bo Bichette is going to be around a long time, he's going to second base. They'll move him off shortstop. In fact, they may do that soon, in the next couple of years. I think Matt Chapman was brought in to kind of help, and I'm going to reserve judgment until the season is over and we can see how much growth Bo Bichette can go through. But I think his future might be at second base, in which case Cavan Biggio, yes, he can be serviceable in other positions, but he shouldn't be asked to do that long term. So that's where I'm kind of like, if they have to choose, they're choosing Bo Bichette over Cavan Biggio. That's for sure, right? When we talk about extensions as well, one person I'd love to talk about, because this is fascinating to me. So when you look down at AAA, Gabriel Marino could be the Toronto Blue Jays, Matt Wieters, for example, or Salvador Perez, who just rides his whole career with his original team, and the team would be silly to let them go. Gabriel Marino looks like that guy. But right above him, you've got Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk. I think we can all agree, maybe, that Kirk is probably the first to go via trade. So my real question, and Steve, I'll start with you, is how long do you see Danny Jansen sticking with the Toronto Blue Jays?
I draw the comparison all the time with Danny Jansen and Ernie Witt. Especially now that, like Witt, when Cito Gaston came on board, he said, look, pull the ball. Forget all this other stuff, pull the ball. I think Danny Jansen has that same approach. So I think he's always going to have value, a catcher with some power, a great defensive catcher. Even if he's not in a starting role, I can see Danny Jansen hanging around, certainly as a mentor, sort of like Russell Martin mentored him and Reese McGuire toward the end of Russell Martin's career with Toronto. I can see Danny Jansen filling in that role. So I think Danny's here for the long haul, unless, again, a lot of teams are going to ask about Danny Jansen, maybe even more than Alejandro Kirk. So then you have to listen. But I can see Danny Jansen being here for several years, certainly the early formative years of Moreno's career.
Right. And Karen, what are your thoughts on Jansen? Do you think he's in for the long haul here?
Um, you know what? There's so many different ways to look at it, and I do have a piece that I'm working on, which I'll get done eventually, about what do you do with these three catchers. I don't know. I'd be a little surprised to see Jansen as a backup catcher. I mean, I've never heard him speak on the subject. I kind of feel like if he had a chance to go elsewhere and be the number one catcher, he might prefer that than to sticking around and being a backup. I don't know, but yeah, it's before the season started, I would have agreed that of these three, Kirk is the one that is most likely to get traded. Have you seen his results this season? Because he's starting to change my mind, honest to goodness. I mean, his hitting, like people have put up there, the weighted runs created plus of catchers through their age 23 season, and he's top 5 all time in Major League Baseball. Like, and his defense, like when I think of Alejandro Kirk, I don't think of somebody who is above average defensively. Well, he's been working on things, because like even his def score it's a pretty positive number there. Like, no, he's never going to be fast, but you know what? He's a catcher. He's not expected to be fast.
Right.
He's hitting extra base hits and driving in runs and scoring runs. We can live with his speed or lack thereof. So I don't know. Like, but what do you do? I mean, Danny Jansen's more established. He's a year closer to free agency. He's also spent a fair bit of the last 2 seasons injured too. And I mean, the catching position and any pro sports position takes a toll on people's bodies. The catching position, maybe more so than any other position, other than maybe pitcher, because of the wear and tear on the arm. But yeah, I mean, you look at, so what is it, Buster Posey? He retired at age 31. Like he just couldn't take it anymore. So that Danny Jansen is great, but how much longer will he perform at this level? And then there's Moreno, who's projected to be an MLB star, and hopefully he will be, and the Jays keep him. And but I mean, you've got Kirk, that is an MLB star right now, and people are talking about him possibly as an all-star, the way he's come on. So yeah, there's so many different ways to look at it.
Yeah, that catching position is almost impossible to predict. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, it's good. People forget with Alejandro Kirk. Of course, most people actually have lives and don't obsess about things in the offseason like I do. Kirk was catching at age 18, catching major league, both current and recently retired pitchers in the Mexican Winter League since he was 18 years old. So he was a regular catcher on a team that was always contending for the title in the Mexican Winter League. He has experience as a defensive catcher. Is he Danny Jansen or Salvador Perez? No, he's not. But he's a really good seasoned catcher, being able to handle professional pitchers. He's got that experience. So you're right. I mean, Kirk is coming into his own. But again, it's a matter of what can you get for him. And it's probably a lot. So that's where it becomes a tough decision. And how many teams can afford to trade an Alejandro Kirk because they have such depth at the catching position? I would say nobody. So.
That's an excellent point. Yeah. In fact, the last part of Alejandro Kirk's game to develop is his ability to hold on to his game notes on his wrist. And once he's got that, it'll be smooth sailing for the young man.
Didn't he lose his
strikeouts?
Yeah,
he has more walks than strikeouts. Pardon me, I'm getting excited here.
Didn't Kirk lose his PitchCom transmitter? I'm pretty sure he's the only major league catcher that has so far. I mean, how do you? Can people lose their phones? I understand that, but they're not professional baseball players that are supposed. It would be like him losing his catching mask. You have to have that on you. So, but I'll overlook that if he keeps raking the ball the way he is so far.
I won't. Come on. It's a simple thing. Anyway, we are just about out of time, but I do want to ask one more question of both of you. And this one is a short answer, like one word, because it has the potential to blow up into another half an hour. So you've been warned. And I have the power. I'll just mute you. So Steve, I'm going to start with you. One word answer. When Lourdes Gurriel's contract is over, do they keep him?
No.
Karen, when his contract is over, do they keep him?
Not me, them.
Yeah. Oh, you can keep him. I'm sure you put a spot on your couch, and he'd be great company.
Lourdes on the couch. What a great podcast I did.
Probably not. That they've got other. I mean, I was actually going to say, of Matt Chapman, Teoscar Hernandez, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who, as far as I know, are all eligible for free agency after next season. Which ones do they keep and which ones do they let walk? Be interesting to see.
I know how I would rank them. I would put Chapman first, Teoscar second, Lourdes third. But that's only because I love Matt Chapman. So I'm a little biased. And I know that's brand new information for all of our Jays from the Couch listeners and viewers. So they've never heard me talk about that guy before. So,
and the good thing about letting Gurriel go is they have Vladdy to play left field. So that's
sweet me. Oh, wow. See, he couldn't let an episode go by. All right. Well, we are just about out of time. Unfortunately, we weren't out of time before Steve could get that in there. But it's okay. Once a week is not bad. So I want to thank Karen and Steve for joining me, obviously, and all of our viewers and listeners. Thank you for every week. But Steve, before I let you go, let everybody know how they can follow you and all that good stuff, and maybe what sneak peek at the next On Fec Circle Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay, well, you can follow me on Twitter at Feckless Wonder. You can send your hate mail to fecklesswonder@jaysfromthecouch.com. Tomorrow night's on Fec Circle. I'm going to kind of launch a new tag for the show, which is Your Blue Jays Alternative. I think I'm going to embrace the fact that I think of things like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as a left fielder. There's also going to be kind of a special Blue Jays bedtime story revolving around, of course, yesterday, 33 years ago. Yesterday was the first game in Sky Dome history, now Rogers Center. Something happened 2 days later that had never happened in Major League history before. So we're going to talk about that.
Kevin Pillar took a walk. There you go.
Poor Kevin Pillar, he's apparently having season-ending surgery. I don't know how or why, but yeah.
He can't catch a break these days. Karen, let everybody know how they can follow you and what's coming up on Sunny Side of the Dome.
Yes, so I'm on Twitter at Karen Sutar1, so exactly as it's spelled there on the screen, SUTAR1, and I'm on Twitter a fair bit. I talk baseball, I talk other things. Mutual respect is important and all of that. And Sunny Side of the Dome, Sunny Side of the Dome, much better days for the Jays lately, and I'm going to focus on the offensive resurgence. And a special hello to everybody who thought that the Jays would never start hitting again, that they just didn't have the talent, and I hope you tune in.
I love how you say a special hello, because we all really know what that means. It really means I told you so, but Karen's too nice for that. So make sure you tune in to both shows, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the On Fec Circle, and Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time for Sunny Side of the Dome. It's just two of the examples of all of the great stuff that we do here at Jays from the Couch, whether it's on our website, all of the written content there. The deep dives by Bob Ritchie are awesome. Ryan Mueller has his everyday minor league report, and the guy's moving across the country coming up here soon, and he was still keep up with those minor league reports. So we owe him a lot. So thank you to him as well. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a little like and all that stuff. Facebook, Twitter, we're everywhere. So for Steve, for Karen, and for Kevin Pillar, let's go. This is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at JFtC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.